The ballroom sparkled with golden lights and laughter filled the air. Glasses clinked, music played softly in the background. And everyone wore expensive clothes. It was a night of glamour, wealth, and celebration. The party was hosted by Mr. Dalton, a powerful millionaire known for his money, attitude, and pride. He loved showing off. And tonight was no different. Every corner of the room screamed luxury, from the marble floors to the crystal chandeliers hanging like stars. Among the crowd moved a young woman in a plain black uniform. She wasn't a guest, she was a waitress. Her name was Lily. She kept her head down and served drinks with quiet grace. No one paid her much attention. She was just another part of the background. Invisible to the rich, she didn't mind. She was used to it. But there was something different about Lily. Something hidden behind her calm face. She walked with quiet dignity. Her steps careful, her eyes sharp, every time she passed by the grand piano in the center of the room. Her gaze lingered for a second longer than it should. Her fingers twitched. Slightly, like they remembered something long forgotten. A song, a memory, a life she once had. Most of the guests ignored her, but one didn't. A young man in a bright blue suit noticed her eyes resting on the piano again and again. He nudged his friend and pointed at her with a smirk. "Look at that waitress," he laughed loudly. "She thinks she can play. Maybe she wants to join the orchestra tonight." A few people nearby chuckled, but Mr. Dalton heard the comment and turned. He walked over slowly, glass in hand, and stood in front of Lily. "You keep looking at the piano," he said, his voice smooth but sharp. "You play." Lily froze. Her cheeks turned red, and she shook her head quickly. "No, sir," she whispered. Eyes cast down, Dalton tilted his head. Amused. "Don't lie," he said. "I've seen that look before." The room quieted. People began to watch, curious about the rich man talking to a waitress. "Come on," he said. "Louder now so others could hear. Give us a tune. Surprise us. Show us what you got." Lily's hands tightened around the tray she held. Her heart pounded in her chest. I can't," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm working." Someone laughed in the back. "She's scared. Probably doesn't even know middle C." More laughter followed. Lily stood frozen, not because of fear, but because of what the piano meant to her. It wasn't just an instrument. It was a piece of her soul that she had locked away. And now someone had found the key and forced the door open. She turned quickly and walked away. Disappearing into the kitchen, her legs felt weak. Her throat burned behind the kitchen door. She leaned against the wall and closed her eyes for a moment. She let herself feel the pain she'd buried for so long. Years ago, Lily had played music. She loved the piano more than anything. Her mother used to say she was born with music in her blood. She had even won a few local competitions and had dreams of going to music school. But dreams cost money. And when her father passed away, everything changed. Bills came first, her mother fell sick, and Lily gave up everything: school, music, everything to take care of her family. Now she was here, in a rich man's party, being laughed at for the very thing she once loved the most. Back in the ballroom, the guests went back to chatting, but a few kept glancing toward the kitchen, curious if the waitress would return. Mr. Dalton shrugged and moved on to talk with his important friends, forgetting the moment, but not everyone forgot. The old janitor near the back of the hall had watched the whole thing. He had seen the look in Lily's eyes, not of fear, but of pain and longing. He whispered to the bartender, "That girl's got a story. I bet she plays better than all these snobs combined." That night, as the party carried on and music continued to play, Lily stood in the back hallway and stared at the piano from afar. Her shift wasn't over yet. But her heart wasn't in her work anymore. She didn't touch the keys, not yet, but deep inside. Something had started to stir. A small flame, she thought, had died long ago. And somewhere in the crowd, someone had seen it too. But for now, Lily returned to her job, carrying trays, wearing a polite smile and hiding her storm behind silent eyes. The night ended, but something had begun the next morning. The hotel staff gathered for a short meeting in the kitchen before the busy day began. Lily stood quietly in the back, dressed in her black uniform, holding a tray in her hand. Some of the other waiters glanced at her and whispered behind her back. The story of what happened last night had already spread. Everyone had heard how Mr. Dalton had asked her to play the piano in front of everyone and how she had refused. Why didn't she just try? One young waitress asked, even if she played badly, at least she could have shut them up. An older worker shook her head. It's not that simple, she said softly. Sometimes, when you've been hurt before, even the thought of trying again is painful. In the corner of the kitchen, the hotel's janitor, Mr. Harlan, was drinking his coffee slowly. He had worked at the hotel for over 20 years and had seen all kinds of people come and go. But something about Lily had caught his attention later that afternoon. When Lily was cleaning the empty ballroom, Mr. Harlan walked over and said quietly, "I saw how you looked at that piano last night." Lily looked up, surprised. "I wasn't trying to cause trouble," she said quickly. "I was just remembering." Mr. Harlan finished for her. "I've seen that look before. You weren't just staring, you were missing something." Lily looked away, trying to hide the emotion. In her eyes, "It doesn't matter anymore," she whispered. "I don't play." "Why not?" he asked gently. She paused for a long time before answering. Life got in the way. Mr. Harlan didn't ask more. Instead, he nodded slowly and said, "Well, if you ever feel like telling someone your story, I'm a good listener." Then, he walked away, leaving Lily standing alone in the quiet room. That night, after her shift ended, Lily didn't go straight home. Instead, she sat on a bench outside the hotel, looking up at the stars. The city lights were bright, but her memories were brighter. She remembered the little house she grew up in. With a small piano in the living room, her mother used to hum songs while cooking, and Lily would try to copy them on the keys. She had learned by ear before she could even read music. As she got older, she began entering small competitions in her town. People praised her talent, and her dream was to attend a music school in the city. She even got accepted, but then her father had a sudden heart attack and passed away. The medical bills, funeral costs, and her mother's illness that followed made it impossible to continue. Lily sold her piano, dropped out of school, and started working to support her mother and younger sister. Music had become a luxury she couldn't afford. She never told anyone at the hotel about this past. To them, she was just another waitress, quiet and hardworking. But now, after what happened at the party, those old feelings had started to rise again. She walked back inside the hotel and stood near the ballroom door. It was late and the room was empty. The lights were off, but soft. Moonlight streamed in from the windows. The grand piano still sat in the middle of the room, untouched, slowly, as if drawn by a force she couldn't resist. Lily stepped forward. Her shoes echoed on the marble floor as she moved closer to the piano. She looked around. No one was there. She sat down gently on the bench. Her hands hovered above the keys but didn't touch them. Her fingers trembled slightly. Then, without pressing a single key, she closed her eyes and imagined the sound of her favorite song. She could still feel the notes in her fingers, hear the melody in her mind. Just then, a soft sound came from the door. Lily stood up quickly. Startled, it was Mr. Harlan. He smiled kindly and said, "Don't worry, I won't tell anyone." Lily smiled back, embarrassed. "I wasn't going to play," she said quickly. "You don't have to explain," he said. "But you should know, Mr. Dalton's coming back tomorrow." Lily's heart skipped a beat. "Why?" "Probably wants to see if you'll play this time," Harlan said. "He likes to be entertained." Lily looked down, unsure of what to feel. Part of her was angry, Part of her was scared, but deep inside, a small part of her was curious. She had buried her passion for years, but now the world had seen just a glimpse of it, and maybe, just maybe, it was time to let the music return. But the fear was still their fear of failing. Fear of judgment. Fear of hope. As she walked home that night, the streets were quiet, but her mind was not. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but something inside her had changed. For the first time in years, Lily began to wonder, what if the dream wasn't dead, just sleeping? The next evening, the hotel buzzed with excitement again. A new group of wealthy guests arrived, and the ballroom was filled with music, lights, and laughter once more. But this time, Lily felt something different in the air. She could feel eyes on her, whispers behind her back. Everyone remembered what happened at the last party, and they were waiting to see if she'd play the piano tonight. Mr. Dalton arrived in a dark suit, his presence commanding attention the moment he walked through the doors. He didn't glance at anyone, not even the guests greeting him. His eyes searched the room until they landed on Lily. She was pouring drinks at the bar, trying to stay out of sight. He smiled and walked straight toward her. "You remember our little moment last time?" he said, loud enough for others to hear. Lily froze. She nodded slowly. "Yes, sir." "Well," Dalton said with a smirk, "let's not leave the audience waiting this time." He placed a shiny envelope on the counter. "There's $1,000 in here. It's yours if you play just one song, nothing more." Lily looked at the envelope, then at Dalton. The guests nearby turned their heads, clearly interested. Some even moved closer, already whispering among themselves. "I'm working," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Dalton raised an eyebrow. "You're a waitress," he said. "But you could be so much more." "Just one song." One of the female guests nearby laughed. "Maybe she's scared. She's not as good as she thinks." Someone else added, "She probably plays like a child." The words hit Lily hard. Her hands clenched around the tray she was holding. She felt small, like the room was shrinking around her. All those years of silence, all the pain she had buried, were now bubbling to the surface again. But this time, something else came with its anger. Not the loud kind, but quiet and strong. The kind that says, "Enough." Lily looked down at her shaking hands, then slowly placed the tray on the counter. She took a deep breath and said, "All right, I'll play." The room went quiet. Someone gasped, and a few clapped softly in surprise. Mr. Dalton stepped aside and waved toward the grand piano. "The stage is yours," he said. Lily walked toward the piano slowly, her heart pounding louder with every step. Her legs felt heavy, but she kept going. Her eyes stayed on the keys as she reached the bench. She sat down, closed her eyes, and let the noise around her fade away. She didn't think about the crowd, or Dalton, or the envelope. She didn't even think about fear. She just thought about the piano and what it once meant to her. She remembered playing for her mother late at night, remembered her father clapping proudly after every song, remembered her little sister sitting on the floor listening quietly. She remembered her dream, the one she left behind. Her fingers hovered above the keys, then gently pressed the first note. The sound was soft, but clear. The room went completely still. All eyes were on her. Then came another note. Then another. Slowly, the melody began to take shape. It was not flashy or loud. It was gentle, emotional, full of something deep and real. Something that could not be faked. Guests stopped talking, stopped sipping their drinks. They stared, wide-eyed, as the girl they laughed at just moments ago filled the room with music so pure it hurt to hear. Some closed their eyes to feel it better. Others stood frozen, as if afraid to move and break the magic. Even Mr. Dalton, known for being proud and hard, stood completely still, a strange look on his face. The song rose and fell like a wave, soft and strong. It wasn't a famous piece. It was something personal, something from Lily's own heart. It spoke of pain, hope, and quiet strength. When she played the final note, her hands lingered on the keys. Then she slowly opened her eyes, afraid of what she might see, for a moment. There was silence, a long, heavy silence. Then, all at once, the ballroom exploded in applause. People clapped, some even whistled. A few stood up from their chairs, shouting bravo. And amazing. Lily stood slowly, not sure what to do. Her legs were weak, but she felt lighter than ever before. Mr. Dalton walked up to her. No smirk this time, just a nod of respect. "I didn't expect that," he said quietly. "You're something else." Lily didn't reply. She didn't need to. Her music had spoken louder than any words ever could. She walked away from the piano with her head held high. Not as a waitress, not as a servant, but as an artist. And even though she didn't smile, something deep inside her had changed that night. She didn't just play the piano, she played her truth, and everyone listened. The night was over. But the sound of Lily's piano still echoed in everyone's mind, even after. The music had stopped. People stood in small groups talking about her. They didn't talk about the food, or the rich guests, or even Mr. Dalton this time. They only talked about the girl who played the piano like it was her soul speaking. Lily walked slowly toward the staff area. Her steps shaky, but her heart full. She couldn't believe what had just happened. For so long she had buried her music, locked it away deep inside her. But tonight, for the first time in years, she had let it out. And the world didn't laugh, they listened. She sat alone on a bench in the staff hallway, her fingers still tingling from the last note. A few staff members passed by, staring at her in amazement. Some smiled. Some gave her a quiet nod of respect. Even the manager of the hotel peeked in, gave her a thumbs up, and walked away without saying a word. She wasn't used to this kind of attention. She had always worked silently, kept her head down, never asked for praise, and now, suddenly, everyone was looking at her like she was someone important. Mr. Harlan, the old janitor, walked up with 2 cups of tea in his hands. He handed her one and sat beside her. "You did good, girl," he said softly. Lily looked at him, her voice a whisper. Was it really that good? Mr. Harlan chuckled. "You didn't hear the room, did you? That silence before the clapping. That's rare. That's when music hits the heart." She smiled a little. But her eyes showed something else too, fear. She wasn't sure what would happen next. Would they expect her to perform again? Would people start bothering her? Could she even handle more? "I just wanted to play one last time," she said. "I didn't expect anything after." But the world had other plans. The very next morning, the hotel phone rang non-stop. Guests who had attended the party were asking about the girl who played the piano. Some wanted her name. Some wanted to book her for private events. One even offered to pay to see her play again. One man, in particular, called and asked to speak to the manager. He said he was a music producer, and he had seen a video someone posted from the party. He couldn't believe what he heard, and he wanted to meet Lily in person. Lily was shocked when the hotel manager told her. She didn't even know someone had recorded her. She felt nervous, unsure. "I didn't do it for fame," she said. "I just played because I needed to." The manager understood, but also told her this might be a rare chance. "Not everyone gets seen like this," he said. "Maybe it's your time." Later that afternoon, Mr. Dalton came to the hotel again. This time, he wasn't wearing his usual proud smile. He walked up to Lily while she was folding napkins in the back room. His tone was different, gentler, slower, more thoughtful. "I owe you an apology," he said plainly. "When I first asked you to play, I did it for laughs. I didn't expect anything real." Lily looked up, unsure how to respond. "But what you gave us, that was more than music," he continued. "It was a story, a feeling, a piece of you." She didn't speak, just listened. "I want to help you," he added. If you want to take music seriously again, I can sponsor your classes. I know people who can teach you, guide you, open doors. Lily stared at him in silence. Her heart beat faster. Her dream long forgotten was now standing in front of her, waving at her to come back. But fear still held her by the arm, pulling her. The other way? I don't know, she said honestly. I still have work, bills, my sister. I'm not sure I can leave everything behind for a dream. Mr. Dalton nodded. Think about it, he said. The offer stands. No pressure. When he left, Lily sat alone again. Her tea had gone cold, but her mind was racing. Was this her second chance? Or just another false hope? That night, she called her younger sister and told her everything. Her sister cried. Mom would have been so proud, she said. You always had that gift. Maybe now it's time to share it with the world. Lily looked at the old photo on her wall. It showed her as a little girl sitting at a piano, her mom beside her, smiling. That image had been buried in her heart for years, and now it was awake again. She didn't sleep much that night. The world had changed in just 24 hours. Not because she asked for it, but because she dared to press one key. And now, she had to decide what to do with the melody life was offering her. The next few days felt like a dream for Lily. People at the hotel treated her differently now. They didn't see her as just a waitress anymore. They looked at her like she was someone special. Even the guests began to whisper when she walked. By asking, "Is that the girl who played the piano?" Lily didn't know how to feel. It was strange, uncomfortable, but also exciting. For so long, she had lived quietly, hiding her talent. Now it was out in the open, and people were noticing her not for how she looked. Not for her job, but for something she loved. Everywhere she went, someone asked her if she would play again. Some even asked for selfies. A few young girls staying at the hotel came up to her and said they wanted to learn piano too. You were like magic, one of them whispered, and it made Lily's heart ache in a beautiful way. But not everyone was kind. A few jealous workers rolled their eyes behind her back. One of the other waitresses said, "Let's see how long her 15 minutes of fame lasts." Another laughed. "She'll be back to folding napkins in no time." Lily heard those words, and they stung. But she tried not to let them bother her. Deep down, she still wasn't sure she believed in herself fully. What if they were right? What if it was just a one-time thing? A few days later, the music producer who had called the hotel came to meet her. He introduced himself as Mr. Ben Carter. A kind man in his 50s with silver hair and bright eyes. "You have something rare," he told Lily. "You play with emotion, not just skill. That's what moves people." He offered to help her get started to record a few simple pieces. Maybe share them online or send them to small studios. Lily listened, but she was nervous. "I've never done anything like that," she said. "I'm not trained professionally. I don't even have a piano at home." Mr. Carter smiled. "That doesn't matter. Talent is talent. What you did the other night, no school teaches that." Still, Lily hesitated. Her life wasn't easy. She worked long hours, took care of her little sister, and paid rent on a tiny apartment. Music had always felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. A dream that belonged to someone else. Later that evening, Mr. Dalton returned again. This time, he didn't bring money or pressure. He simply asked, "Have you thought about my offer?" Lily looked him in the eyes and said, "Why are you helping me?" Dalton paused, then said, "Because when I heard you play, I felt something I haven't felt in a long time. And also, because I was wrong about you, I laughed at you like a fool. Now I want to fix that, if I can." Lily didn't reply, but she didn't say no either. Something in her heart was changing. That weekend, the hotel planned a charity event in the ballroom. The manager asked Lily if she'd like to perform. Again, no pressure, he said. Only if you're ready. Lily thought about it long and hard. She didn't sleep much the night before. When the day came, she stood in front of the mirror, looking at herself not in her uniform, but in a simple white dress that the hotel provided for her to wear. On stage, she barely recognized herself as the crowd gathered in the ballroom. Lily waited behind the curtain. Her hands were shaking, her heart racing. But then she closed her eyes and remembered her mother's face, the warmth in her smile. The sound of her voice saying, "Play for yourself first. Let others listen if they want." She walked onto the stage slowly. The lights were bright, the room full of strangers. But she didn't feel small this time. She sat at the piano, took a deep breath, and began to play. The music flowed gently, like water. It started soft, full of feeling, then slowly grew stronger. Her fingers danced across the keys with grace and memory. She played a song her mother once sang when Lily was just a little girl, a song of love, struggle, and hope. Tears welled up in the eyes of many guests. They didn't know her story, but they felt her heart, even the staff, those who once mocked her, stood silently, some covering their mouths in awe when the last note ended. The room was silent again, but this time it wasn't just applause that followed. People stood up one by one, clapping louder than ever. Some had tears, others had smiles. But everyone felt something powerful. Lily stood and bowed, her eyes found Mr. Dalton in the crowd. He was clapping too, slowly, with pride in his eyes. And next to him was Mr. Carter, nodding with a smile. She walked off the stage with her heart full that night. She hadn't just played music. She had told her story without saying a word. And for the first time in a long time, she felt seen, not as a waitress, not as a poor girl from a broken home, but as who she truly was. A musician, a fighter, a dreamer. The next morning, Lily woke up to something she never expected, her phone buzzing non-stop. Messages, calls, and notifications kept coming. Her performance from the charity night had gone viral. Someone had recorded it and posted it online with the title, "Waitress plays piano and makes the whole room cry." Millions of people had already watched it. Comments poured in. People from around the world were praising her talent. Some said her music made them cry. Others said they hadn't felt something so deep in years. A few even said she reminded them of famous pianists from the past. Lily sat on her bed in shock. She had no fancy clothes, no studio, no fame, just her music. And yet, here she was, known by strangers she had never met, not for being a waitress, but for the sound of her soul. Her little sister called, crying with joy, "You're famous, Lily. I told everyone at school that you're my sister." They couldn't believe it. Lily smiled through tears. Her heart was full, but she also felt scared. What if this all disappeared tomorrow? What if people expected too much now? Later that day, she returned to work. Some staff clapped when she walked in. Others looked at her with wide eyes. Even the hotel manager shook her hand and said, "We're proud of you." But there were still whispers from the jealous few. One waiter muttered, "She was just one of us last week." Another scoffed, "Let's see how long she lasts in the real world." Lily heard them, but this time she didn't let the words sink in. She knew who she was now. She had faced worse in life: pain, loss, poverty, and she had survived all of it. This was just noise, and she didn't have to listen to it. Later in the afternoon, Mr. Dalton returned to the hotel. This time, he brought someone with him, an older woman with a kind face and round glasses. She introduced herself as Evelyn Grant, a retired music teacher and mentor. She had worked with some of the best young musicians in the country, and now she wanted to meet Lily. "I watched your video many times, Grant said warmly. "You play with emotion I don't see in most trained artists. It's rare, very rare." Lily blushed. "I never went to music school. I just learned at home when I was little." Ms. Grant nodded. "That makes it even more beautiful. You play with your heart, and that's something no textbook can teach. She offered to give Lily private lessons free of cost, she said. She'd love to help her grow, not just as a performer, but as an artist. "You've been given a voice, Lily," she said. "Now let's help you use it." Lily was overwhelmed. So many good things were happening, and it was all so fast. She wasn't sure if she deserved it. What if I fail? She asked quietly, what if I disappoint everyone? Ms. Grant smiled and placed a hand on her shoulder. Then you get up and you play again. That's what musicians do that evening. Lily went home and sat quietly by her window. She didn't have a piano at home, but her fingers kept moving. In the air, remembering every key, every note, she hummed softly. The melody from her last performance still fresh in her mind. She thought about her parents, about the little piano in their old home, and the nights when her mom would sing while Lily played. Those memories were still painful, but now they gave her strength. Too. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. When she opened it, Mr. Dalton stood there with two men carrying something. Behind him, it was a piano, a beautiful, upright piano, simple but elegant. Lily was speechless. "What is this?" Dalton smiled. "A gift, not charity, just something to say thank you." For the music, Lily tried to stop her tears, but she couldn't. "I can't accept this." She said, "You already did," he replied gently. "It's yours, that night, for the first time in years." Lily sat at her own piano, in her own home. Her fingers touched the keys, and the sound filled the room like old magic returning. Her sister sat beside her, listening with wide eyes. Just like when they were younger, Lily played softly, not for an audience, not for a video, not even for fame. She played for herself, for the little girl who once dreamed, for the young woman who almost gave up, for the future that was now beginning. And in that moment, everything felt right. Her hands, the piano. The music hit, all belonged together again. Outside, the world continued talking, sharing and watching. But inside that small apartment, it was just Lily, her music, and a second chance she never thought she'd get. And this time, she was ready to take it. The big day had come. The hotel was holding a special music night. And this time, Lily wasn't just a surprise act. She was the main event. Posters with her name and photo were placed at the entrance. The same girl who used to serve drinks was now being introduced as Lily Brooks, the rising star. Lily stood behind the curtains of the ballroom stage, wearing a simple but beautiful blue dress. Her heart was beating fast, not because she was scared, but because this night meant something more. It wasn't just about the music anymore. It was about her journey, where she came from and where she was going. The room was full of people, some rich, some ordinary, but all there to hear her play. Many were the same guests who had once looked down on her as just a waitress. Now they waited in silence, hoping to hear the magic again. In the front row sat Mr. Dalton, Ms. Grant, and Mr. Carter. But most importantly, her little sister sat right in the middle, smiling brightly with tears in her eyes. She wore their mother's old scarf, and it made Lily feel like her mom was there too. Somehow, as the host walked on stage and introduced her, the crowd clapped politely. But when Lily stepped into the light, the room grew silent again. Everyone leaned forward as she sat at the grand piano. Her hands hovered over the keys for a moment. She looked at the audience, then closed her eyes, and then she began to play. The first notes were soft, like a whisper. Then they grew stronger, deeper. The melody flowed like a river, gentle, powerful, full of life. She wasn't just playing a song. She was telling a story without words. Each note spoke of struggle and hope, of nights filled with worry, and days full of silent dreams. She played from her heart, and the people felt it in theirs. Some guests covered their mouths, others closed their eyes and simply listened. It was a song her mother used to hum when Lily was a little girl, a lullaby full of warmth and sadness. Lily had added her own twist. shaping it with emotion and memory. The sound wrapped around the room, soft and heavy, like a blanket in winter. As the music filled the ballroom, something changed in the crowd. They didn't see a poor waitress anymore. They saw an artist. Someone who had walked through pain and still managed to shine. A few people had tears on their cheeks, including Mr. Dalton, who wiped his eyes quietly when the song came to an end. Lily kept her hands on the keys for a moment longer. The room was so silent. It felt like time had stopped. And then, suddenly, the applause came. It started slowly, then grew louder and louder. People stood from their chairs, clapping with full hearts. Some whistled, others shouted her name. It wasn't just polite applause, it was real. Raw and full of feeling, Lily stood up and bowed. She looked at her little sister, who gave her a standing ovation with both hands in the air. Lily smiled, and for the first time in years, she felt proud, not just of the music, but of herself. After the show, people came to meet her. Some wanted pictures, some just wanted to say thank you. "Your music healed something in me," one woman said. "I lost my mother last year, and tonight, I remembered her." A man told her, "You reminded me of what passion looks like." Another said, "You gave me chills. I haven't felt like this in years." Ms. Grant came up and hugged her. "You didn't just play music tonight," she whispered. "You gave people a piece of your soul." "That's what true musicians do." Mr. Carter smiled. "We're ready when you are." He said, "Let's record. The world needs to hear more of you." Even Mr. Dalton, once proud and cold, simply said, "I'm honored to have met you." Lily, his voice was soft, honest. That night, Lily didn't go home right away. She stayed in the empty ballroom after everyone had left. She sat at the piano again, alone in the quiet, and played one more soft tune just for herself. As she played, she whispered, "Thank you, Mom." Her eyes filled with tears. But she didn't cry from sadness. They were tears of peace, of strength, of joy. She had done it. She had gone from a silent girl with forgotten dreams to someone who made the world stop and listen, and she was only just beginning. Because music was back in her life now, not as a memory, but as her future. Months passed, but Lily's name didn't fade like most internet stars. Instead, her fame grew slowly and beautifully. Not because she chased it, because her music continued to touch people's hearts. She remained the same quiet, humble girl who had once carried trays and folded napkins. But now, she carried something else to hope. She no longer worked as a waitress. The hotel gave her a special role performing for guests on weekends and teaching piano to young visitors. They even turned a small room into a music corner with her name on the door, Lily's room. She still lived in the same small apartment with her sister. But life had changed. They smiled more, worried less. Her sister had joined a better school. And Lily had started giving free music lessons to children in the neighborhood. She believed that every child deserved a chance to feel what she once felt when she touched the keys. One afternoon, Lily visited Ms. Grant for her regular lesson. The older woman smiled as she watched Lily practice. "You're not a student anymore, Lily," she said proudly. "You're becoming a teacher, a performer, a leader." Lily blushed. "I still feel like I don't know enough." "That's the sign of someone who truly loves what they do," Ms. Grant replied. "The moment you think you've learned everything, you stop growing." Meanwhile, Mr. Carter had helped Lily record a few original piano tracks. They were soft and emotional, just like the pieces she played that night at the hotel when the songs were released online. Thousands of people downloaded them. Some sent her emails, thanking her for helping them through hard times. Others shared their stories, how her music reminded them of lost loved ones or gave them peace in moments of sadness. One woman wrote, "Your music made me cry, but in a good way. I hadn't cried in years. Thank you for opening my heart again." Lily read these messages late at night, sitting by her window. her hands resting on the keys of the piano Mr. Dalton had gifted her. She never forgot what that night meant, how one small chance had changed everything. Mr. Dalton remained in touch too. He came to her shows quietly, never asking for attention. One day he visited her after a performance and said, "I used to think money was everything. But that night you played. I learned something new. Real value lives in the things that move us." Lily nodded. "Thank you for giving me that chance." Dalton shook his head. "You gave it to yourself. I just opened the door. You walked through it." More opportunities began to appear. Small concert halls invited her to perform. Local radio stations played her songs. A charity organization asked her to play at an event supporting orphans. Lily said yes without hesitation. That performance was different. The children there reminded her of herself when she was younger. She played not just to impress, but to inspire. And when the little ones gathered around her after the show, asking to touch the piano, to play a note, she smiled and said, "You can do this too. You just need to believe." One evening, as she returned home, she found a letter in the mail. It was from a small music school offering her a scholarship to continue her studies. All expenses paid, classes flexible to her schedule. They had heard her music and wanted her to grow even further. She sat on her bed holding the letter, her eyes filling with tears. Not long ago, she had given up on all of this. She had told herself dreams were for other people, not for girls who worked all night and barely paid rent. But now, the world was showing her otherwise. Her sister came in and hugged her. "Mom would be so proud of you," she whispered. Lily smiled. "I hope she's watching." The next weekend, Lily returned to the hotel not to work. Not to perform, but just to visit. She walked past the kitchen, waved to her old coworkers, and stepped into the ballroom quietly. The room was empty. Sunlight pouring through the tall windows. The grand piano still stood there in the center, shining like it always had. Lily walked over and sat down. Her fingers gently touched the keys, and she began to play just a soft melody, a thank you to the place where it all began. Behind her, someone whispered, "Is that her?" A few staff members had come to watch without saying a word. Lily turned and smiled. Would anyone like to learn a song? A few young workers came forward shyly, and Lily began teaching them a simple tune. Her voice was calm, her hands steady, and her heart full. She had come full circle. She was no longer just a girl who cleaned tables and dreamed in silence. Well, she was a musician, a mentor, a voice that brought healing and hope. And as she taught that simple tune, laughter filled the ballroom, gentle, kind, and real. Her story was no longer just her own. It belonged to everyone she had touched, with every note. Lily proved that even the quietest dream, if given a chance, could rise louder than anyone expected, and the music would never stop.